folks, I'm Dan Brown from a sort of interesting life.com. You're joining me on board good old Narrowboat Tilly for the Narrowboat Diaries, and today we're going to have a very special, very rare guest appearance of the sun. I don't know why I gesture up towards the night sky as if I could see it through this solid metal roof of all things, especially when it's even raining outside, of course. But yes, you're actually going to see some beautiful sunny canal scenery in this episode, along with, unfortunately, some less beautiful sunny canal scenery. Anyway, this episode is going to take place over the sort of midsection, the main bulk, I suppose, of February, where there's all sorts of events going on, and you're going to see us travel down from around the Lion Quay sort of area, spend a couple of nights by the New Martin Locks, just down from St Martin's, in a nice open field area, love it there, and then finish off heading down towards Mad Jack's. Let's start off this video by making good on our promise that we're actually going to see some sunny footage, although you can see there's a few suspect clouds up there too. And really, I wanted to just open with this clip to show you the general surroundings of the boat when she's moored up by the Lion Quays, which is the pub and restaurant and all that sort of stuff that's just on this side of the canal. And ultimately, although this video is going to feature a lot of sun, I do want to point out that this is what an awful lot of the days were like, unfortunately. And really, I think just because it's a novelty to have some proper good, beautiful sunny canal scenery to show you, I thought, well, that's what we'll focus this video around. Firstly though, I need to show you, like I say, the bad times, and there was an awful lot of this sort of stuff thrown in. Quite a lot of very windy days, but again, ultimately, like I've said so many times, on such a small boat as Tilly, once you get that fire lit, you're all good to go and can be far too hot when you're inside, basically. It goes beyond cosy sometimes. But this was the reality, that it was just so wet underfoot, and you can imagine that when the towpath is looking like this, even if you had a good few really bright, sunny, dry days together day after day, it didn't do much to really dry much of this out, as it was just so waterlogged. And then the next time that you'd have a downpour, it would be instantly back to the worst surfaces ever. As usual though, the coalboat people were doing their rounds, going up and down, so Hannah and John topped me up with some more diesel, a new gas bottle and some bags of coal. And again, I mean, it was really just a nice time, I suppose. Throughout the middle of February, there's a lot going on, which we'll talk about in just a second, but having these nice days to just go and wander. I mean, this is, again, not even 10 minutes away from Tilly, that little cliff there, and you can just be in these beautiful places. Again, though, always comes back to keep that fire lit. I think this was some sort of uneaten bread wrap or something like that I'd put on that made an awful lot of smoke, unexpected amount of smoke. The biggest event really that happened during this time wasn't anything to do with me or Tilly. It was my friends finally moving away from Western Rin, which is just by the canal, and it's the reason that I've always spent so much time and spent my previous winter mooring periods up at Chirkbank and by the Poacher's Pocket, so I can just walk up there, and all the usual fun and games that would go with having friends right by and having a boat, basically. And really, because it was coming to their last few days there, they made sure that we all had our last walks going around all of these little areas in the general vicinity. And again, you can see we actually had this sun to get out and enjoy. And I can't explain to you, over the last decade or so, the amount of hours I've spent out in these places with them exploring. And all of this used to be one great big tree, and people came and chainsawed bits and took it off as firewood, but it used to all lean up at an angle wedged against another tree, even more of an angle than this tree in front of us is leaning across, and you could start to walk up it and stuff. And again, it's just, I don't know, it's that sort of bittersweet thing of there's so many great memories, and now everybody's moved into Oswestry, so there's an awful lot of changes going on, and it's something we'll talk about in future Narrowboat Diaries, as it's quite handy having even more friends right next to where I work. But this clip here shows you, again, after days of beautiful sun, that these back roads and the country lanes that I'm always biking down are still flooded, and you can see just how waterlogged the fields are and that. And this is just one particular place we happen to stumble upon. And again, that's the sort of thing that I really can't explain to you how infuriating it has been over these last 6 months or so to just have so much rain so constantly that every time you do anything, you know, right, I'm probably going to get a soak in, or at least if it's not raining, I'm still going to have to put my waterproofs on because I'm going to have to bike through areas like that. But again, I mean, just how great is it to actually see the sun? And this was another typical thing, though, that the best sunny days we were having with this beautiful sky like that were all the days that I was actually working, which is why I had that little bridge shot from in town there. Now, this was waking up after a beautiful morning, really quiet, calm night on board, loads of stars in the sky. As you can see, it was extremely cold, so you expect a clear sky. But this is exactly what I love about waking up on these early mornings to go boating, particularly when it's actually nice weather like this, is you have these random little things like your rope's frozen solid into a pizza rather than just all unwinding as a normal piece of rope should. Now, if we actually do a little bit of sunny boating here, don't get too used to this, as unfortunately by the end of this video we're going to be back dealing with a lot of rain while we boat. But I wanted at this point to just move down to St Martin's and stop there only for a few days, just to get a few supplies from Stan's, the supermarket up over the fields. And again, you'll see a few clips from the classic walk that I always like to post. And there's so many things that happen during February, but nothing that really makes a good story, which is why I've done this video almost as an audio podcast, recorded over the top of these video clips of the different places and different events that were going on at the time. As there's nothing to go, well, this is the big story of what happens here, here and here, and of course nobody wants to see me go and move house with a friend or anything like that, and nobody wants to see me particularly going, well, this was my old bed on my friend's floor when I stopped there, and this is my new bed on my friend's floor when I stopped there. It just happens to be a different floor, but it's the same sofa cushions. Back to the beautiful place at hand. I just can't explain to you how nice it was to actually have this weather thrown in after all of the bad rain, and like I say, to just wake up and have an actual proper winter's morning where everything's frozen and it's all really cold and crisp, but you have this beautiful blue sky above you. It's everything that a winter on a boat should be, I suppose. Again though, when it came to actually walking up over the fields to get a few supplies to top up Tilly before I moved further on after a day or two, there was definitely a little bit of mud to deal with, as you can imagine. Again, this is one of my favourite places at all to go walking. Literally, you're only walking a couple of fields from Tilly on the canal up to St Martin's, a tiny little village, but you just have these little tiny bits of just a few trees together, not even a set of woods, I would say, where you've got this stream running down, and it's just the most Hobbit-like Lord of the Rings location that I can think of, and especially having little things like these little bridges. There's a few of those little walking bridges dotted around in these fields. Unfortunately, as you can see, it actually looks more like you need a proper bridge just over the plain old field itself. Dealing with this amount of mud over this much of an area, it's extremely difficult to really avoid it, and I think that it's something that really illustrates some of the worst parts of boating in the winter, particularly after so much rain, that everything you want to do basically involves some degree of mud and unpleasant amount of rain and water. Ultimately though, getting back on board with a few supplies and a few like tins of soup and stuff like that to tick you over for going a little bit further out and further afield for a moment or two before moving on down towards places like Maysbury and then up to Ellesmere. It's a perfect opportunity to stock up just being a couple of fields away. And once you're back on board with that beautiful winter sky outside and your kettle whistling away on top of the fire, it's not too bad at all. As usual though, unfortunately, it all completely starts to fall apart as soon as I think, oh, you know what, I might actually want to do some boating in the morning. So after a couple of days there, and after the rain had really set in and the wind came back up, because St Martin's is just these low fields around you, you're very much exposed to the weather, and I thought, well, I'm going to get out of here pretty sharpish, because even I don't want to be rocked around too much at night by the weather. And to get a speedy getaway the following morning, because the wind and rain was predicted to be quite bad in the sort of mid-section of the day, I went down late at night and filled up my water bottles with water from the tap about, I don't know how far, maybe half a mile down from where I was moored up. So I ended up walking all the way back up to Tilly in the pitch black with about 16 to 20 litres of water in my backpack. But again, I woke up and it was windy and raining anyway, so I just thought, you know what, let's just go for it. Well, here we go again, my friends. Again, it's unbelievable. The wind seemed to have dropped an awful lot, yet out here with all this open field at sight, it's amazing the effect that the wind has blowing the boat back across towards the towpath. So you gotta be careful passing this boat over and out. So, as the wind whipped away at us and the rain started and stopped at random, giving me that false sense of hope that it might actually turn out to be a beautiful day after all, which unfortunately it didn't, you can see that it was just a nice, pleasant, calm trip. Again, no rush, taking your time, and once you're a certain degree of cold, wind-whipped and wet, it doesn't matter how long you're out boating for. So, carried on down, like I say, nice and slow through the locks here, and ultimately found myself at Mad Jack's, and then had a quick nip into town and back out, and all of the usual fun and games that goes on. I think that these are the sort of moments when you're out here just in the cold and the wet, going about these little simple things like working the locks. It's that really peaceful, quiet time where there's nobody about walking, there's no other boats travelling around, that can, I suppose, go in two ways really, depending on how you feel and what sort of person you are. It can be like, oh, well, this is nice, it's therapeutic, a bit wet, but I can deal with that. Or it can be, oh, this is lonely boating at its worst, and oh, I don't like this, and oh, I've got to be out here boating in these conditions, oh, it's stupid. But really, it all comes down to the person. I certainly don't mind it, I'll say that much. Although, with how much bad weather we've had, it does get a little bit tedious. Now, one of the side effects of me friends living in town is that when I've been at work and stuff, I can meet them up in Oswestry itself and go for these little walks around town rather than being walking around the country lanes, which is not as beautiful or rural as Pixie on one of my dinner breaks from work. But it's slightly different, and it makes a nice change to actually see my friends more often. Here we are with another one of those normally unseen moments of life. So, I am currently on my dinner hour from work. I've popped back to my mum's house where I'm currently recording a couple of voiceovers on videos. If we follow the wire down, there's our little microphone, keeping it well away from the laptop in case we have the fans start up and start interfering and all that sort of stuff. But basically, the plan is now to get this done, leave them uploading, then head back to work, finish work obviously, then go up to my friend's house immediately from work, stop there for a little bit, then come back here later on in the evening, grab my bike, hop on my bike, then go out to the boat. We're not too far away, we're only at Mad Jack's, so that's only about a 20-25 minute ride. I mean, it'll be late at that point, so there'll be no traffic, so it should be easy going. And then, well, whatever happens when I get back, then in tomorrow morning I will be hopping on my bike to come back into town, meet my friend, and goodness knows what else will unfold as the day goes on. So, business as usual. When I talk about getting back late at night, this is how dark the canal is, and this is that same coal boat in the dark with my bike light going past, as you saw earlier in this video. But waking up again in the morning and wow, look at this, it's actual sunshine again, especially rare on a day that I'm proper off work and actually got plans to meet a friend. Although you can see here that there's a little bit of cloud starting to move in, even before I've left the boat relatively early on in the morning. So, in the usual way, as soon as I actually managed to get into town and met my friend, by the time we'd walked into town and spent about maybe 20 minutes planning what our adventures were going to be, you can see from this little clip here that it was instantly completely cloud covered and starting to look very much like the sort of day that I might be biking back out in the rain. But luckily, it actually turned as sort of had the general overcast day, but as the evening came in, it got extremely cold, which definitely led to a very chilly bike ride back out. But you can see here that by about sort of, I don't know if this was about 10 o'clock, 10 to 11 at night, everything was really getting a proper solid ice and frost over it, which you can imagine boded well for the following morning, and I expected to wake up to a beautiful sunny day. But I suppose this is the perfect moment to wrap this video up too. Waking up and seeing that sun beaming through the front blind is definitely a good omen. And on that note, I think we'll draw this video to a conclusion. It's going to be about 15 minutes. Hopefully that's a suitable length for everybody. But until the next time, thank you so much for tuning in to this random update from Boat Life. Feel free to check out my other videos for literally hundreds of boating videos now. Feel free, if you're super interested and want to help me out a bit, to check out my short boat life Kindle books. You'll find links to those and all sorts of other stuff in the video description below. But until the next time, have an absolutely fantastic day, keep it boat worthy, and of course, farewell.